Okay, let's see. Hello, hello. We are a bit delayed today, but I am here with you all. Thank you for joining in. I got my notes here. Since I am delayed, I'm going to give everyone a few minutes, maybe about 3 minutes to get in here, and then I'll get started. As always, if this is your first time joining me, thank you. Thank you for joining in. I truly appreciate you. If you have not already put your email on the website at www.thatnemtgirl.com, please make sure you put it in the chat this evening, and I can go ahead and add you manually. Also, if this is your first time joining us, please drop in the chat as well which state you all are located in so we can kind of see where everyone is from tonight, okay? Again, thank you for joining in. If you have any suggestions for topics from going forward from today, please let me know. If you all were on last week, I let you all know that for May, I pretty much have the lineup lined out except for the last 2 weeks of the month. So please let me know which topics that you all would like to see. Tonight's topic is a part 2 from last week. So if you missed last week, I will give a brief overview tonight. When I say brief, I mean very brief, but I will give a brief overview tonight in regards to what we touched on last week because it definitely coincides with what we're going to be talking about tonight. Crystal, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I truly appreciate you being here. If you all have any questions that you may have thought about from last week and you all want to throw those in the chat to get those answered, please let me know. Again, tonight's topic is a continuation from last week. It's part 2 on how to market for private pay. So I'm going to give about 2 more minutes for everyone to get in here, and then I'm going to go ahead and start. If you all have anyone that you know needs to be in here that's not in here yet, go ahead and hit them up, shoot them a text, send them a message on Facebook, a DM on Instagram, whatever, and get them in here, okay? All right, I do have my different screens again, so I like to make that disclaimer as well. So if you all see me shifting back and forth from one camera to the next, that's why. All right, and I'm just gonna give, while we're still waiting for a few more people to get in here, I am gonna give just a reminder. So we have taken down the time for the lives. It used to be an hour, now we're going to 30 minutes. And shortly from here, it'll be closed to the public and only for members. So this will be going on. I will definitely let you all know the exact time that it'll be cut off for the public, but going forward soon, pretty soon, it'll be just for members for the live. So if you all haven't checked out the membership package, please make sure you go onto my website, www.thatnemtgirl.com. You definitely get some good things in there. You get something that holds you accountable to starting your business or growing your business each week. So you definitely want to check that out, especially if you're serious about getting this thing going or growing your business to the next level. Okay? So with that being said, I think we have enough time to give people in here. If they haven't gotten in here, then they'll see us, floating around through social media and be able to join in that way. So just want to give a quick overview on what we touched on last week. Again, the topic is how to market for private pay. And we talked about specifically preparing yourself for talking to the PIC, the person in charge. And so with that came making sure your marketing binder was prepared and was ready to go. So I'm going to just touch on, I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth from my notes. I'm just going to touch on some things that I spoke about last week. I know many of you all were in the process of beginning to market or thinking about joining the industry. And so some of you all had heard things about brokers, and some of you all were trying to say or see, which way you all should go about getting your private pay clients. So when it comes to private pay clients, you want to definitely go to the facilities And like I said, you want to go to the rehab centers, dialysis clinics, things of that sort. You also want to make sure that you are making contact with the person in charge, because just putting flyers out there, putting your card out there on doors is not something that is really going to be effective in retaining those clients, right? As I mentioned, a lot of those clients may be of senior age, and they take referrals or recommendations from the people that essentially take care of them, which is the PIC, the person in charge of the facility, the nurses, the discharge nurses, the caregivers, things of that sort. So you want to make sure you're making contact with those individuals specifically. Secondly, you also want to make sure that you have try to set up some type of meeting in person with the PIC, especially after you ask those initial questions. I said those initial questions were, you want to know if the facility is responsible for paying for that patient's transport, or if that patient is responsible for paying for it themselves, because that tells you who you need to direct your marketing toward, get your marketing towards. If you need to put on a whole presentation for the residents, or if you need to set up a one-on-one meeting with the person in charge. It just depends, right? From there, you wanted to make sure that you had your marketing binder together, because that's essentially your elevator pitch. You're going in there, you don't have that much time you're talking to someone that's busy, and essentially you're trying to sell yourself. So make their job easy by making sure you have all of your things together in one space, which includes your certificate of insurance, your business license, your business registration, your rate sheet. You want to kind of tailor the rate sheet based on the information that you have gathered for that particular property or facility, right? So make sure you have that rate sheet in there. Your staff qualifications. What makes your drivers qualified to transport these clients? Have they had first aid and CPR certification? Have they had wheelchair securement training? Have they had defensive driver training? Do they have a pass certificate? If they have these things, go ahead and put that in your marketing binder. That's why you made sure your team had them, because it's a tool to upsell and to sell your company amongst the competitors. So make sure you have that. I also talked about having the pictures of your vehicles in there, and your company background, information on your company background, right? So the part where we pretty much left off was setting up the in-person meeting and presentation. So that is where we're going to begin tonight. Again, I know that was a pretty quick and brief overview in terms of what we talked about last week. But again, if you have some specific questions, or if you weren't on last week, then please drop those in the chat, because I'm going to go ahead and move on to what we're going to be talking about this week, so that we don't run out of time like we did last week. Okay, so preparing for the presentation. So when it comes to preparing and setting up for the actual meeting or presentation, you're gonna do the cold call. So with the cold call, like I said, you're gonna, because I did touch on this last week, it's coming back to me now. But with the cold call, you are going to set up. You're going to have that conversation with the front desk administrator, or you may get right to the person in charge. It just depends on how large the facility is or how small it is. It could be a rehab facility with a lot of patients. It could be more of a mom and pop rehab facility where they don't have that many patients, but they're still in need of services. It could be a much more rural area. So it just depends on the research that you have done on the property or the facility to know what questions and what answers you're getting. So once you do it, go ahead and do your cold call. You're going to ask the questions, and based on the facility type, you're going to try to get in there with that person in charge. Now, if you can't get the person in charge, like I said, try to ask those questions with the admin. Try to get the contact information for the person in charge, so that you can send that person the information directly, okay? You don't want to get someone on the phone and the information falls on deaf ears, because if they're not the person that makes the decisions, or they're not the person that, pays the invoices or makes the final call on what contractors or vendors are utilized, then kind of wasting your time, So you want to make sure you're talking to somebody that actually makes the decisions. Okay, and so from there, where are we? Sorry, you all. I got carried away from my notes, and I just was freestyling it. All right. So once you have determined if it is going to be, I'm going to start off with presentation because presentation is a little bit longer than the one-on-one meeting with the person in charge. So say for instance, you have had the cold call of the person in charge and you all have established what you're going to do. You're going to come to the property and you're going to do a presentation for the residents because the residents are responsible for picking their own provider. This is a facility that they have a heavy population of patients who or residents who are in wheelchairs. It could be a rehab facility. It could be an assisted living facility where they also have a lot of stretcher patients as well. Say, for instance, they may have at least 8 to 15 transports within a 3-week time span. That's pretty good for a private pay facility, okay? So that means you have a consistent flow. You want to make sure when it comes to your financial portfolio, you want to make sure that if you are doing broker, that you're divvying up your financial portfolio where your private pay clients essentially run your business. And what I mean by that is you're making enough money from your private pay clients that your broker pay is just simply extra on top. Okay? You don't ever want to build your business where your broker is how you're eating and surviving and your private pay is your extra sugar on top. No, because if anything happens with a broker contract, if brokers lose their contract with their insurance plan, which has happened before, and I'm telling you from personal experience, if you lose a contract, if that broker falls out of the network plan with that insurance plan, if another broker moves in and takes that contract from that broker with the health plan, then your volume is going to slow up, right? So yeah, you may have killed it this month and made $10,000 that month, but then next month with the broker, you may only make $3,000 because it's slowed up. And I'm telling you this from experience, okay? So you never want to build your portfolio simply around the broker. You also want to make sure you're building it around the private pay client and your broker is the extra sugar on top. Yes, in the beginning, the broker is how you're going to sit there and get off the ground and how essentially the first few months of running your business, you're going to be able to pay your invoices. However, that is not where you want to get stuck at. That's what we call the broker's rut, and you don't want to get stuck in the broker's rut. Okay? All right, moving right along. So once you go ahead and you set up that presentation, you want to offer an incentive for the whatever you're gonna do, a lunch and learn, coffee and donuts in the morning, whatever you're gonna do. You want to kind of offer an incentive because essentially you're selling yourself to these patients, these residents, these clients, right? So they have to come to your presentation. Yes, they live on the facility. Yes, they live at the property, but they don't necessarily have to come or they don't necessarily have to be a part of what's going on for them. So, you want to offer them something so that it gets them out of their room to come, which is typically coffee and donuts, lunch and learn, something creative. You can do a game with it as well. You can do a little raffle. If you can contact like a local mom and pop shop or Chick-fil-A, Panera Bread, and ask, tell them what your business is, have your marketing binder and show them, what you're doing. Let them know. Typically, you may be able to get some type of donation towards your business, whether it be a few gift cards for $10, whether it be, some coupons or something. You can give that for the presentation for them to come, right? So that draws them in. They have a reason to come, whether it's they get a free lunch or whether they get some free breakfast, whatever, they're coming. And so you want to make sure that you set up something visual that is very visual for them to see. We're thinking about people that have a disability or they may be older in age and they're not able to see as well as you may be able to see, right? So you want to make sure that it's big. If you all can see here, let's over Facebook and Instagram. If you all can see here, this is what I'm in right now is a conference room. So what we have back here is the TV screen that can be hooked up to the HDMI cord. You all see that there. And what you can do with that is a projector or your computer. A lot of phones as well. I'm so sorry, y'all. If you were tuned in a few months ago, you saw that my allergies were flaring up really bad. They had calmed down, and now they're coming back full force with this pollen. So bear with me. But this is a great tool to have a TV with a HDMI cord. And I'm not saying to go out and buy a TV. No, most properties or most facilities have some type of lounge area for the residents or some type of conference area. So that's a question that you want to ask during your cold call because you want to know how you're going to set up for your presentation. Okay. Another suggestion would be to get a projector. If you get a projector from like Amazon or Walmart, they're like $50, and you'll be able to use that on your computer, even on your phone. You just have to get the little adapter piece that goes into the charging port. But you'll be able to get that and essentially put that up to the projector screen and do your presentation that way. You just need it to be big enough where they can see. Now you can give handouts and pass those around, but we're talking about cost and being cost efficient. So depending on how many presentations you're doing in a 3 month time span, just for 1 quarter, how many presentations you're doing, how many people are you printing those flyers off for, those handouts for, how many people are you, having to essentially touch and lay hands on to think about the font. So just to kind of wrap it on up, having something that is just essential to use over time and time again is best, which again is going to be your projector for your best bet. Also, again, like I said, if the property or the community has a TV, then make sure you yourself invest in an HDMI cord at least, because they may not have that available, okay? But typically most places have a lounge area for residents to come and join, or some type of conference room to come and join where they are there for presentations, things like that, for them to come together, okay? All right. So you've established if you're going to have a lunch and learn or a breakfast and learn. You know how you're going to set it up based on a projector or the TV screen or handouts. And it's time for you to put on the show. You're there, okay? So once you have gone and went to once you have gone and went to get everything together, you want to make sure that you also have a sign-in sheet, because anyone who comes to the event is someone who is interested to see in what you have going on, even if they didn't sign up for services on the spot, or even if they didn't ask you questions on the spot. You want to make sure you capture their information, because that's an opportunity for you or whoever is assisting you with admin to reach out to that person to see, hey, why did they come today? Are they in need of services? Do they know someone who's in need of services? How did you do at the presentation? Even if they don't use your services, right, it's still worthy enough to know how they felt about the presentation and how they felt that you did with it, okay? Because that gives you feedback for your next one. So reaching out would still be very beneficial, and I highly recommend it. Now, in terms of putting the presentation on, now you want to make sure in terms of what your presentation entails, a slideshow, a video. You don't want to do too much reading or having to make them do too much reading, because they may not retain the information you're trying to get them to understand, okay? So you want to make sure you have some type of video. Make it interactive. Make sure you're asking questions along the way so that you know that they're keeping up with what you're talking about. One moment. All right. So, you want to make sure that you have some type of video or presentation for them to follow. I'm sorry, slideshow for them to follow so they can know what you're talking about. This is acting up so bad right now. That's what I mean by presentation. If you're not able to do it yourself, then I highly recommend getting someone to help you with it. They have assistance on Fiverr that you can pay for a low cost. If you all need to reach out to me for some quick questions in terms of what you should include in it, please do so. but you want to make sure that you put together some type of presentation. It doesn't have to be long, but you want to include what your services entail. You want to include your background story. Essentially, you're including everything that I mentioned for you to have in that marketing binder. You're going to include that in your presentation. So may not necessarily be your certificate of insurance, because the clients, yes, they want to know that you're insured, but they may not know what they're looking at, you know? So you want to just mention to them, like, you know, we have our commercial insurance policies, you know, what the limits are, just to let them know and feel comfortable that you have the insurance. They don't have to see that on the presentation. They want to see more so, how do your vehicles look? What's your staff like? What's the background story? How much does this cost? That's what they want to know, okay? The property on the one-on-one meeting, they want to see the registration of the business license, the business insurance. That's what they want to see. But when you're selling the presentation to the residents and the clients, they want to know more of the company itself, okay? So just keep that in mind for the presentation. All right, I'm going to speed this up some because I'm getting a little long-winded. We got about 12 minutes left, and I got into questions too. All right, so also too, I'm sorry, make sure you put your questions, whatever questions that you all have, because we have 12 minutes left together, and I want to make sure that I touch on whatever questions you all may have, okay? So while I'm talking, let me know if there's anything that I've gone over so far that you all may have questions about. All right, so that is the presentation portion of it. So again, I'm going to give a summary of it, and I'm going to talk about what you should do at the end when meeting with the person in charge. So you're going to reach out to the property. You're going to set up the meeting or the presentation. In this case, this is the presentation, right? So you know from this that you need to do a lunch and learn or a coffee and donuts, something to get them enticed to actually get the residents there to your presentation, because they don't have to come just because you're at their property or at their place of residence, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting something to entice them there. You want to make sure they can see the presentation, whether it's on a TV screen connected with the HDMI cord, or if it's going to be a projector, or if it's going to be handouts. Just keep in mind, handouts are going to be more costly because you have to print paper for each presentation. You don't know how many people you're going to have. You're always going to have to print extras. You know, paper and ink, it does cost. So just keep that in mind. If you were talking about something for longevity and making sure that you have that to use time and time again, that's going to be a projector or the TV. Make sure you have a HDMI cord, because just because the property may have the TV doesn't mean they're going to have the HDMI cord, okay? So now I'm going to go to the other side of things. If this was a one-on-one meeting, say for instance you contacted the property and the property says, yes, we are responsible for paying for our residents' transportation. Hello, that's the best call right there, because you want to meet with the person that's in charge in person, face to face. So you can set up a lunch directly with that person where you can have lunch catered, and you all can sit down for a one-on-one meeting, let them know that you'll be covering lunch for the day, and say it'll be about an hour meeting, and you can go over all of the things with your marketing binder, right? But providing lunch for that person allows them to, number one, they don't have to leave the property or the facility to get lunch. Whatever you're ordering is probably going to be better than what they have had in their mind to eat for lunch in the first place. Number two, it's a little bit more informal, where it's not so, you know, you may not be as nerve-wracking for that. You're having a meal, and then you get to discuss business afterwards. So it puts you all at ease. You all can get to know each other better in terms of the property and also the company that you run. Okay, so take that in mind. So once you set up this meeting, you let them know that you're going to be covering lunch. If they allow you to, that's great. If for whatever reason they say they don't want you to do that, then by all means oblige and keep it moving. Just set up the meeting and be okay with that. Okay, so set up the meeting one-on-one, and from there you want to go over your marketing binder. Your marketing binder has everything that you need in one spot. Okay, clearly if you've gotten a meeting in person, they need transportation services, so that's why you're there. So they need you. Just keep talking and selling your company. Now from there, once you give them the marketing binder, they're going to give you feedback on what they think, whether they think it's a go, whether they have to go and take it to their higher ups to see what they approve of it. If that's the case, then you also want to make sure you get feedback on how that person feels, because although they may tell you they have to take it to a higher up, which is maybe true, right? You want to know, is this person going to advocate for your business when they get to the higher ups? Do they like what you just said? Because if they do, that's a great thing. They're going to advocate for you more to even be, so even allow your company to be used at their facility because number one, they know that they have a need for your service. Number two, they've already met you. They've already gotten to know you. They already know the background of your company. So they're more enticed to say, hey, this is a pretty good vendor right here. We're going to go ahead and use them versus getting to the higher ups. And the higher ups may ask them more follow-up questions than what just a binder could do by itself or an email could do by itself. And, you know, that gives a better selling point for your business to get that contract. So you want to make sure you go about it that way instead of just sending an email or making a call. You want to extend the invitation, or have the invitation rather extended to you to come out to have that one-on-one meeting, but you have to make the contact with the person in charge first. Okay? Let me see. Now, when it comes to speaking with them after you've had that one-on-one meeting, say for instance, they're not at liberty to make that decision if they're going to use your company for sure or not. You think they are, but they have to get back to you. That's fine. Do not leave that meeting without a solid date of when they're going to follow up with you. Okay? So don't say, okay, well, thanks for meeting with me. You know, I look forward to hearing back from you. No. When are they going to hear back from you? Okay? Is it going to be in a week? Is it going to be in 2 weeks? If they don't have a time frame of when they can tell you when they're going to meet back with you, then you set that. You take the initiative and you set that time frame of when you're going to meet back with them. Okay? Just say, hey, I'm going to follow back up with you in about a week and see what your executive said about, you know, my proposal. Let me know what they think. If they have any, you know, feedback or they have any concerns of things that needs to be altered, please let me know. We can meet about it and discuss it and see how we can come to a happy medium, you know, because they may have some feedback about the rates or, you know, they may need you to extend hours for your business for their residents specifically. So you want to make sure that you're touching base to follow up to see how is this going, right? What is the feedback we're getting from higher ups? Are we moving forward with this contract? Don't just let that one meeting go by the wayside without having a follow-up, okay? That's like sending an email and just waiting for somebody to email you back. And it's something that you really want to get some information on. You want to take more of a lead and be more aggressive and do that follow-up yourself, okay? All right. All right. So now, say for instance, everything goes well and they want to go ahead and secure that contract. They want to lock everything in. You want to make sure that you have a template that you can send them for your private contract or private transportation agreement. Okay? Now, in the template, yes, you're going to have to alter it. It may be something that, you know, the hours may be altered. It could be the rates that could be altered. And so within your template for your private contracts, I do recommend not building your rates into the contract, but making sure you have an appendix at the end of your contract that has your rates, because the appendix can always be adjusted for each property or facility that you are servicing, okay? So again, don't build that into your contract, build that into your appendix and have that separate so that you can, if you need to, change it for different facilities, which you will need to because each facility is going to be different. You may have a zone fee for one may be closer to your home base and you may not need to have a zone fee included, okay? So it just depends, but you want to have that appendix. I do also offer templates on my website. Again, if you all have just joined in or you've been joining in throughout, it's www.thatnemcgirl.com. But I do have a private service agreement template available. Now, you want to make sure you use that template to lock in your agreement. Please do not just have an email thread, or please do not just have a verbal agreement on how things are going to run at this property or this facility, because This is your livelihood. Without a contract, you're not doing real business. Okay? And without real business, you're just doing volunteer work. And we put a lot of time into this industry. Nothing should be for volunteer work. Okay? So make sure that you have your service agreements. Make sure that you have um, your private contract signed, sealed, and delivered. And the best thing to do is make sure you have a DocuSign account. I believe it's about, I want to say the cheapest one I want to say is $16.99. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. It may be 20. I know it's no more than $20 a month though. But with DocuSign, you're able to send documents and get the electronic signature. That person that you're sending it to gets a copy, and you get a copy as well. Therefore, you're not walking around with loose leaf contracts and losing documents where you don't have a copy and you don't know if they signed this page. No, everything needs to be seamless. So make sure you take that into consideration as well in terms of software, because sending out private pay contracts is not going to be the only thing that you have to do that's going to require an electronic signature. Okay? And DocuSign is not something that you have to keep for a significant amount of time. You just have to sign up, and once you want to cancel it, you can cancel it. You don't have to keep it, whatever. You're not locked into anything, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, so moving on to the questions, because that wraps up the one-on-one presentation and the one-on-one meeting. I'm sorry, the presentation and the one-on-one meeting. Now, I do see some questions here on Facebook. Let me see. How did you go about selecting the facilities to do presentations at? So you really have that comes with doing market research. You have to find out the facilities that do need your services. So you have to find out, do you want to service more of the city area, more of the rural area? Do you want to do more of the counties that are near you? And if so, what kind of facilities are you going to do? Are you going to do rehab facilities? Are you going to do assisted living? And then you want to call them to see if they need your services. Each facility doesn't need your service. They may already provide transportation for their residents or their clients. They may already have another provider. It just depends. But you have to find out which facilities need you and then go from there. Okay. All right, that was all the questions I saw on Facebook. We got any questions here on Instagram? Let me see. Okay. All right. Well, if we don't have any questions on this, I am going to. Oh, I'm sorry. How did you determine your rates? Um, oh, okay, Kara. You can go on if you scroll down on the group page, there is another live that you can play back that we talked about how to discover your rates for private pay, and for broker pay. So if you scroll down on the page a few weeks back, I believe it might have been in February, but that was a live that we covered, and you can watch the playback on how to discover the rates. All right. Um, No problem, Crystal. Again, I thank you all for joining in this evening. Again, these lives, they went from 1 hour to 30 minutes. So if you are interested in keeping these going, like I said, coming up, they will be cut down to just for the membership group, okay? So thank you for joining in this evening. I truly appreciate you all. If you all missed any of it, the playback will be available on the page once it loads up after I end this, okay? So thank you all for joining. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.